Hey y'all, my name is Carla Medrano, aka Moon the Storyteller, and I tell stories. And I want to help you tell your stories and sell them. To one, I am a wife. To another, I am a mom. To thousands more, I am a nurse, a voice actor, a creator, and to you, I want to be your comic book marketer. So back in 2022, I pivoted from bedside nursing and decided to combine my knowledge and skills and my love for social media to help healthcare professionals market their products and services. Over the course of 2 years, I earned $100,000 plus as a part-time healthcare marketer. And when I started writing my own comic book, Luna, I poured all that I knew into ensuring that Luna saw the same success as my clients. As a result, Luna has had 2 successful Kickstarter launches, and most recently, I took lead on the marketing strategy behind the largest indie crossover event in history, the Epiphany Engine. That initiative raised over $60,000 in just 30 days. Joseph Illich, an award-winning Milestone and DC Comics writer and editor, gave me the title, The Misty Night of Marketing. So, I ain't new to this, y'all. All right, y'all. Welcome to episode 8. Episode 8. So, as you all have noticed, this podcast will be every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks, only because I just want to make sure I'm not spreading myself too thin, because I am, as you know, just launched the course, and my first 4 students have started today. And I'm just really excited. I cannot wait to see their transformation and how their understanding of how social media works and how to take full advantage of it to market your books and sell your books. And this past weekend, I was just extremely focused on, working my sales funnel, and I made a few sales over the weekend. And it is all things that I teach in the course, but I do teach some of that in the podcast. So even if you can't invest in the course right now, make sure you tune in every 2 weeks to this podcast so you can learn a little bit more about how to market your comic books. And I have added another service. I've also do marketing consultations. So check your emails. Because some of y'all not checking y'all emails. Check your emails. And you also can see that link there in the email. All right. So just to recap, there are 3 ways that you can work with me. 1, listening to this podcast every 2 weeks, booking a marketing consultation with me, or joining me in the course. So all those links are sent every single week in an email. So just make sure you're opening up your email, okay? All right, so I did my little housekeeping. All right, y'all, today, this week, I really want to talk about kind of the things that as indie creators, we really don't think about because it's always kind of been there. But I really want us to stop and think about what this latest announcement from Diamond Comic Distributors means for us. Okay, so as you know, last week, Diamond Comic Distributors are filed for Chapter 11, which basically is not a full blown out bankruptcy, but it's bankruptcy, but they are restructuring, meaning that they're going to honor their debts, they're going to honor their agreements, and they have the support from one of their lenders who's going to be, lending them $40-something million to kind of redo and restructure everything. So their announcement on their website reads, in part, "We are restructuring under Chapter 11 to continue supporting our vendors and employees while serving our customers and the industry. We are committed to keeping stakeholders informed as the process moves forward and will provide ongoing updates on this page. Thank you for standing with us as we work toward a stronger future." All right, so why did they file for Chapter 11? So I was trying to kind of get a full understanding of this, by going to Screen Rant, of course, looking at their website, Diamond Comic Distributors website, and other websites. And so this is what I came up with. So the unexpected loss of certain exclusive publisher relationships, all right, primarily DC Comics, compounded by an overall contraction in consumer spending, increased inflation, and a loss of margin on key print product lines. After exploring all available options, Diamond determined that filing for Chapter 11 is the best course of action to restructure its operations and secure the most favorable outcome for all stakeholders. All right. So, what were the contributing factors in the industry that led to this decision? Well, I think COVID shook up the world. It shook up the world. I think COVID changed a lot for a lot of companies, including us, right? So their website says, post-pandemic, the comic book industry at large has seen a decrease in consumer activity, prepared with rising operating costs, and Diamond is no exception. Shrinking margins, growing expenses, and a decline in sales, as well as the desire to achieve the best possible outcome for our vendors, customers, and employees, all contributed to this decision. And if you think back to COVID, I think for some of us, well, for me at least, and for a few others I know, COVID was kind of like a wake-up call for us. Basically, we cannot rely on one source of income. We have to have multiple sources of income. And not only that, some of us had time, right? So some of us were able to kind of reawaken some of our hobbies and passions from our youth. For me, it was my writing. And that's how my comic book came about. That's how Luna came about. So COVID taught us a lot, but that was kind of in our first world ecosystem, right? We didn't really think about how COVID affected these larger entities. Some of these larger entities made bank, Amazon, right? But some really struggled because you got to think about, if we only had like COVID, some people lost their jobs, some people were laid off, some people were unemployed, what have you. If we're trying to figure out what to buy, obviously we're going to buy groceries. We're not going to buy comic books, right? And so those industries that aren't really necessities did suffer, and Diamond was no exception. And then on the tail end of that, DC Comics started working with other distributors. So that was a large part of Diamond's income, a revenue rather, a revenue. Income is for us po folks. Revenue is for the business heads. All right, so let's get back to the point of why I'm sharing this with you. What does it have to do with us, right? So most of us don't have an actual relationship with them, but we do support local comic book shops that do. Per Screen Rant, Diamond, which was virtually the sole distributor of comics in the U.S. market for over 20 years, has been struggling for the last 5 years. And in late 2024, it started missing shipping dates. Given that digital comics are available on the same day as print titles, the delays hurt not just Diamond sales, but comic retailers as well, with hardcore fans turning to the internet to read their comics to avoid being spoiled. And I want to say, I don't remember when like the DC Unlimited app, I don't know if I don't think that's what it's called, but the DC Comics has an app, Marvel has an app. I've read most of my comics online, and I do try to support the local comic book shop, but it's just more convenient. It's just more convenient reading the digital version, So let me just go back to something though, because it kind of irks my soul, right? It says that Diamond was basically a monopoly for 20 years. This is why I'm gonna get on my soapbox for a minute. This is why I do not like monopolies, because when monopolies crumble, a lot of people are impacted. So I'm not quite sure how this was able to come about, because usually in this country, they're like, no monopolies, we're going to block everything, we're going to sue and block everything. But somehow Diamond was able to kind of push on and become king, and that really is sad, because these last 5 years with COVID, they started to struggle. But it does speak to how in the world, what was their infrastructure like? What was, why, like, I don't know. I guess me looking outside in, I feel like they should have had like a backup plan, right? when COVID hit, they should have restructured right away. They shouldn't have been struggling, and I don't know. It's just, that's a whole nother podcast. I don't want to keep this podcast from going on, but it was just, I feel like there were so many things they could have done differently to avoid this from happening. But it's easy for me to say, sitting here in my bed, in my under my comforter, drinking my iced tea, so it's easy for me to say. So now the question is, what will happen if Diamond Comics isn't able to recover? Well, y'all know what the next step is. It's Chapter 7. And they're going to have to liquidate some of their assets. They're already selling off some of their divisions. But if they go Chapter 7, if they go full on bankruptcy, they're going to have to liquidate, their assets. So how will this impact our local comic book shops? Well, hopefully it won't. Hopefully, this Chapter 11 filing won't interrupt anything too much, right? Because there are other distributors like Ingram that they can work with, right? But again, what really bothers me is, why did anyone think that creating a monopoly would serve anyone? One of my good friends, he's an older gentleman, and he was reading comics in the 80s, right? So he's a little older than me, but he was reading comics in the 80s, and he just remembers the time before Diamond, right? He said that comic book shops are really kind of still trying to figure it out, kind of struggling. They didn't really have a cohesive, systematic way to bring in comic books until Diamond stepped in. So Diamond kind of saved the day. And that's how I kind of feel like that's why they became so big, and people started to really rely on them. The industry relied on them. And they were king for many, many years. But I just hope that now comic book shops are kind of learning from this experience. Like, you cannot rely solely on one source. You can't rely solely on one distributor. You have to diversify what you're doing, right? So what can we learn from this? Well, one, I don't want y'all to rely on anyone to get your book marketed and sold. I want you to learn how to market yourself, your books, your products, and sell them yourself. Learn how to do that yourself. Don't rely on anyone to do that for you. And although Diamond no doubt helped many small press publishers get their books into stores, if Diamond does not recover, those small press publishers that were relying on Diamond to get their comic books in the stores, they're going to have to start over. Okay? So that's why I've started this podcast. I want you to learn how to market your stuff. Market your own stuff. And if you come across a distributing company that wants to distribute your comic books, great. But I want you to have those skills yourself. Learn those skills yourself. And I mentioned here, I think I'm going to skip that because I think we're running long. But anyway, y'all, just to recap, Diamond Comic Distributors just filed Chapter 11. What can we take away from this? Number one, first of all, you have to diversify your efforts. Don't rely on one sole social media platform or one distributor or one publisher. Diversify. Have a plan B. Okay? Secondly, learn to market and sell your products yourself. Learn how to do it yourself. With some creativity and consistency, you can build a beloved brand that thousands, maybe even millions, will fall in love with. Okay? And One way you can do that is tuning in every 2 weeks to listen to this podcast. Learn the fundamentals of marketing, right? So, all right, I hope that was just a little insight onto the industry as a whole and how it relates back to you. And I will see you back here in 2 weeks. If you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. And don't forget to join my email list. All right, y'all. See you in 2 weeks.